To make a web page come alive using HTML and CSS, one important thing to consider is adding transitions or animations. Today, let us discuss the common methods of using transitions and animations in CSS. Please listen carefully so that we can understand how to use the properties intended for transitions and animations. Let us begin with transitions. What is a CSS transition? A CSS transition allows you to smoothly change a CSS property from one state to another. It requires a trigger, such as hover, focus, or a class change. The CSS transition properties include transition property, which specifies the property to animate, such as all, opacity, or transform. Transition duration, which defines how long the transition lasts. Transition timing function, which determines the speed curve of the transition, such as ease or linear. And transition delay, which sets the amount of time to wait before the transition begins. Please also observe the shorthand syntax for writing the transition property and the correct order of its values. When adding a transition, it is important to know which property you are going to change. If you plan to change multiple properties during the transition, it is better to use all, which animates any property that changes. However, if only specific properties need to be animated, you should clearly specify them in the transition. For example, opacity animates only the element's opacity. Background color animates the background color. Width animates the width. Height animates the height. Box shadow animates the shadow effect. Color animates the text color. And transform animates transform functions such as scale or rotate. If you use none, no transition will occur. These properties are commonly applied when using the hover pseudo class. Next is transition duration. This property is required in a transition because it defines the length of time the transition will take to occur. It is important to understand how different values affect the animation. For example, zeros means no animation will occur. 0.2s creates a very fast transition. 0.5s is considered normal speed. 1s produces a slow transition, and 2s results in a very slow transition. You can also use milliseconds, such as 300 milliseconds, to specify the duration more precisely. Another important property is transition timing function, which defines how the speed of the transition changes over time. In other words, it controls how the element moves from the start state to the end state. The default value is ease, which starts slowly, speeds up, and then slows down at the end. The linear value maintains the same speed throughout the transition. The ease in value creates a slow start, while ease out creates a slow ending. The ease in out value produces a slow start and a slow end. The step start value causes the animation to jump immediately at the beginning, while step end makes it jump at the end. The steps for function creates a step-based animation divided into 4 intervals. Finally, cubic Bezier 0.4, 0, 0.2, 1 allows you to define a custom speed curve. Lastly, we have transition delay. This property defines how long the browser waits before starting the transition. It is important not to confuse it with transition timing function, which controls how the animation moves. For example, zeros means there is no delay and the transition starts immediately. 0.2s creates a small delay. 0.5s produces a medium delay, and 1s results in a longer delay before the transition begins. You can also use milliseconds, such as 300 milliseconds, to specify the delay more precisely. Now, let us watch a demonstration of how transitions work using the hover pseudo class on a div element. This time, we will first use the all value, followed by a specific property. However, before we proceed, please make sure you understand the transition timing function property. Take note that when the value of the transition property is all the properties you have added will transition smoothly when hover is triggered. However, if you specify a particular property in transition property, such as width, background, or border, only that property will transition smoothly on hover. Other properties that are not specified may change instantly, without a smooth transition. The first example uses the long method, and the next example uses the short method. Don't forget the order of the values: property, duration, timing function, and delay. Make sure to practice and understand the different movement effects created by the timing function. Now, let us proceed to an important property that can be used in both transitions and animations: transform. The transform property allows you to change the shape, size, position, or rotation of an element without affecting the layout of the page. It is one of the best properties to animate using transitions or animations. With transform, you can move elements, rotate them, scale them, skew, tilt them, combine multiple transforms, and even create 3D effects. Let us explore the first value of transform: translate. The translate function moves an element from its original position along the X and/or Y axis without affecting the layout of the page. There are several ways to use translate. Translate X, 50px, moves the element 50px to the right, while translate X-50px moves it 50px to the left. Translate Y, 50px, moves the element down, and translate Y-50px moves it up. You can also use translate 50px, 30px to move the element along both the X and Y axes, or translate -50%, 0, to move it using percentages. Please watch the demonstration to see how these translations are applied. Now, let us proceed to the next transform value: scale. The scale function is a CSS transform that changes the size of an element without affecting the layout of the page. Here are the different ways to use scale. Scale 1 keeps the element at its original size. Scale 1.2 makes it grow, and scale 0.8 makes it shrink. You can also scale only one axis. Scale X 1.5 stretches the width, while Scale 0.7 shrinks the height. Using scale 1.2, 0.8, allows you to scale both the X and Y axis simultaneously. Please watch how the element responds to the different scale values as demonstrated. Next, let us discuss the rotate value of transform. The rotate function is a CSS transform that spins an element around its center point without affecting the layout of the page. Here are some example values and their effects. Rotate 0 degrees results in no rotation. Rotate 45 degrees rotates the element clockwise. Rotate minus 45 degrees rotates it counterclockwise. Rotate 180 degrees flips the element, and rotate 1 turn completes a full rotation. Please watch the following demonstration to see how these rotations are applied. The next value of transform is skew. The skew function is a CSS transform that slants an element along the X and/or Y axis, giving it a tilted or italic-like appearance without affecting the layout. Here are some example values and their effects. Skew X, 20 degrees, tilts the element along the X-axis. Skew Y, 20 degrees, tilts it along the Y-axis. Skew, 20 degrees, 10 degrees, tilts it along both axes, and skew, minus 15 degrees, tilts it in the opposite direction. Please watch the next demonstration to see these effects in action. Lastly, we will explore 3D transforms. This time, you can open your text editor and try the following 3D transform values. I hope you have learned about transitions, especially using all, specific properties, and the different values of transform. Now, let us proceed to another topic, CSS animations. A CSS animation runs using keyframes and does not require user interaction to start. Animations can run automatically, loop, and have multiple steps. The main properties of CSS animations include animation name, animation duration, animation timing function, animation delay, animation iteration count, animation direction, animation fill mode, and animation playstate. Let us now demonstrate each of these properties. Animation name defines which keyframes animation to run. Without animation name, nothing runs. Animation duration controls how long the animation takes to complete one cycle. The animation timing function property controls the speed behavior of an animation. Common values include linear, which maintains a constant speed, ease in, which starts slowly, ease out, which ends slowly, and ease in out, which starts and ends slowly. Animation delay adds a wait time before the animation starts. The animation iteration count property defines how many times an animation runs. For example, 1 is the default and runs the animation once, 3 runs it 3 times, and infinite makes the animation loop forever. The animation direction property controls the direction of animation cycles. The value normal plays the animation forward, reverse plays it backward, alternate plays it forward then backward, and alternate reverse plays it backward then forward. The animation fill mode property defines what styles are applied before or after an animation. The value none is the default. Forwards keeps the final state after the animation ends. Backwards applies the start state during the delay period, and both combines the effects of forwards and backwards. For the next example, please practice on your own. The next property is animation play state, which defines whether an animation is running or paused. Here is the full best practice and example for using the long format of CSS animation properties. Below is the shorthand declaration for CSS animations. Using the full CSS examples provided, try changing the values of the keyframes and observe the output. Here are some keyframe examples to get you started. Here are the features and differences between CSS transitions and animations. For an important reminder, please listen carefully. Transitions animate changes between two states. A property change is required, such as hover, a class change, or a JavaScript event. The transition must be set on the element's initial state. Transitions work best with hover, focus, active, and class toggles. The transition property defines which property will animate. Transition duration defines how long the animation lasts. Transition delay defines when it starts, and transition timing function defines how it moves. Using transform and opacity provides the best performance. Although transition all works, it is generally not recommended. In CSS animations, at keyframes defines how the animation changes over time. The animation name and animation duration properties are required. Unlike transitions, animations run automatically and do not need a hover or other user interaction to start. For best performance, use transform and opacity rather than layout properties. The from and to keywords correspond to 0% and 100% of the animation. Setting animation iteration count to infinite makes the animation loop forever, and animation direction alternate makes it run back and forth. The animation fill mode. Forwards property keeps the element in its final state after the animation ends, while animation play state paused can stop an animation. To achieve smooth animations, avoid animating layout properties like top, left, or width, and instead animate transforms. Thank you for watching this CSS tutorial. I hope you have gained knowledge about CSS transitions and animations. Have a nice day.